a lot of people say, hey, don't use AI. Oh, why are you using ChatGPT? Even with image
Mhm.
generations. And I mean, I would make the argument, yeah, sure, if you don't have to use it, don't use it, right? We don't need to overuse anything.
Yeah.
But the amount that we use, regular people use, and then I would say even the amount that I use as an engineer is absolutely just a drop. It's nothing compared to what these companies are using.
Mhm. Today's guest is someone using technology not just to build, but to inform, empower, and activate community. Jonathan Zayan is a software engineer and the founder of Peak, a platform where he merges his technical expertise with social impact. Through projects like elpasohub.org, which brings awareness to the proposed data centers in the El Paso area, and the upcoming EP Cleanup app inspired by his work with EP Trash Mob, Jonathan is reimagining what it means to be both an engineer and an advocate. In this conversation, we're diving into how he bridges code and community, the responsibility that comes with building tools that inform the public, navigating imposter syndrome in the advocacy spaces, and what he envisions for the future of El Paso. I'm your host, Charbon Hales, and this is Light, Life, and Limitations, a podcast where creativity meets reality.
When the world feels out of frame, every thought, every fear, every revelation, I find my way through the quiet flame, lighting life in all the limitations.
Welcome, Jonathan.
Thank you for having me.
So, Jonathan is the fiance of one of my previous guests and a good friend of mine, Megan Jimerson. So that is how I've come to know Jonathan. And in our kind of hangout sessions and, and going out, me being the third wheel, in our conversations, we've just kind of talked about your projects and, and information that you wanted to share with the public, and kind of would have conversations about, creating content and, finding ways to get information in front of people and out into the community. And you've been kind of like, wheels blazing now with all these things coming out. So definitely, I'm super interested to talk to you more about some of the things that you've recently created and then other initiatives that you have coming out soon. So why don't you give us a quick introduction to yourself and some of your background and how you ended up in El Paso?
Sure. Well, my name is Jonathan Zayan. I'm a software engineer. I've actually been in El Paso for going on 16
Mhm.
years consecutively, and I was here actually a little bit before then as well. But I was initially here because of the military. I was stationed at Fort Bliss.
Mhm.
I was an active duty soldier as a combat engineer. And then once I got out, I actually came back a few years later and decided to stay here.
Nice. And you're originally from Brooklyn, right?
Yeah, from Bensonhurst in Brooklyn.
Nice. So you were here, you were in El Paso, you went back to Brooklyn and then came back to El Paso?
Actually, after the military, I went to Pennsylvania.
Oh,
That's where my mother was.
yes, yes.
I went to help her out. She was doing foster care,
Oh.
and she was like, "Jonathan, I'm really burnt out. Can you come help with these kids?" And originally, I was like, "No," you know, but your mother, right? You got to go help. So I went and helped her, just kind of relieve some of that burden, and
Nice. What area of
came back
Pennsylvania?
in the
In the
Poconos.
Poconos, okay.
That was over in at the time. Where was it in Tobyhanna?
Mhm.
I'm not sure if you're familiar with the area.
Not really. Like, I just know the Poconos as a whole. Being from Philly, you just drive to the Poconos, you go to, like, Jim Thorpe or something, and then you
Okay.
go back. Um, so let's talk more about your background as a software engineer. So you were doing, you were an engineer in the military. So then coming out of the military, what kind of made you wanna, go into software engineering?
So the software engineering, I've actually been doing it. It depends how you look at it. Like high level software engineering, I've been doing for over 4 years. In terms of familiarity with code and website design, I was actually doing that a lot longer, since
Mhm.
about 2017. And oddly enough, I actually didn't want to be a software engineer or be involved with coding. So my bachelor's degree is actually in psychology.
Mm.
And I was doing a lot of research. And my professor, Dr. Chen, she invited me to be in the master's program that she was leading the research for. and it was specifically for engineering psychology. Oddly enough, everything comes back together.
Mhm.
And part of that, I would have had to learn Java,
Mm.
which is a programming language. And I told her, I was like, hey, this seems like a really interesting field. It's not quite what I'm looking for, and I absolutely don't want to learn how to code. So that was back in 2015, and then 2017, I actually started my web design company, which was called Gemini's Dev. So, that's a little interesting. But even at that point, I just like making websites. The biggest thing that we did, it was making websites for small businesses.
Mhm.
I felt like a lot of companies were getting ripped off.
Oh, yeah.
So me and my friend linked up and we were like, hey, let's make websites. Let's make them good and affordable. So I did that for a few years, once again, having no interest in learning like programming, like high level
Mhm.
programming. But it wasn't until after COVID where I got the spark, which was actually because of a dream I had. But I don't know if that's an interesting
Of
story.
course, it's an
Is that what
interesting
you
story because that's a source of inspiration.
Yeah. Well, if you're interested in this dream, I don't say it often, but I had a dream that I was rich, which is always good inspiration, which is actually odd. I'm really not money hungry,
Mhm.
but still, that stress free life. In the dream, there was this big mansion that I was the owner of, and there was this big party there, and everyone was just real happy.
Mhm.
And in the dream, I went into my bedroom, which was really cool. It had like this, you walk in and it had like a lowered bed and elevated platforms and these lower sections.
Mhm.
And it was just this really like intricate thing. It was really cool. But in the dream, and I can't go into details here because it's something I still want to invent. In the dream, there was an invention.
Mhm.
And someone was like, what is that? How did you do that? And I was like, oh, I invented it. That's how I got all this money. It's because of this invention. And I woke up and I was like, wow, that's a really good idea. Like, it's a really good invention. So then I did, what I'm used to. Like, I'm used to doing research and like solving
Mhm.
problems, figuring things out. And what I learned is, okay, hey, I'm going to have to learn Python. I'm going to have to learn how to actually code. And that's really what kicked off. So I taught myself Python. And then from there, I was like, this is cool, but I'm still not learning fast enough. So
Mhm.
then I actually went to a coding boot camp that's for veterans, oddly enough.
Oh, nice.
So I did that, and then I ended up getting my first job within the field. So since then, I've just been continuously growing. And in the back of my mind, I still have this idea, which, with the rise of all this technology, including AI technology, now the idea is actually a lot more feasible
Mhm.
and it can actually be created.
Hey,
So it's kind of
I
like I'm
am
kind of
a
getting to that
I'm a
precipice.
full believer in that in I've recently just gotten into this whole kind of idea of, like, the quantum realm and, like, multiple timelines, and, and I know that's, like, for some people, it's, like, fiction and it's Marvel and stuff like that, but, there's just, like, this kinda whole concept of, like, your future self, like, already exists, and
Mhm.
kind of when you have dreams or moments of inspiration and stuff like that, it's kind of like you connecting to your future self. So, that's me and my kinda, like, spiritual, like, mojo, um, interpretation of that. So, if you dream it, it can become real. I always
Right.
say this is, uh I just saw something earlier today on Instagram that said the ceiling the ceiling does not exist. He was like, there is no going backward because the basement has, like, a floor, right? It stops, but the ceiling can keep going. There is no limit.
Mm.
So, um, but we'll move on from that. Let's get back to talking about what you do with, Peak. So how did you then move into creating Peak?
So that has a lot to do with why I left my last, you can call it big boy job. Um, so my last previous, like more corporate job, I was actually working for Caesars Sportsbook,
Okay.
which is one of the largest gambling
Mhm.
platforms that exists. When I worked on it, I specifically was working on the responsible gaming portion.
Okay.
So as an engineer, I was creating features that either help people who have gambling addictions or help people curb the potential to get gambling
Mm.
addictions. So it was, I definitely learned a lot. And working on such a large scale project that has so many users. so many financial transactions, so much data processing. Like, you learn a lot,
Mhm.
but I wasn't feeling fulfilled. And that's, like, a very Jonathan thing. I need my soul to be, like, nurtured,
No, I definitely
and,
can relate to
money doesn't do that. Learning does that a lot.
that.
That's why I'm
Mhm.
always learning stuff. But, what I enjoyed was that I got to do something that I felt benefited people.
Mhm.
But there was only so much we were allowed to implement, because pretty much depending on your state and your jurisdiction, there's, like, a minimum legal standard of what the company has to implement.
Mm.
And essentially that was the job. The job is saying, "Hey, here's the minimum standard, do it." And there's been times, as a problem solver, where I've proposed
Yeah.
features, especially, based off of my background with, learning psychology, my degrees in psychology, my interest is in helping people. And I've implemented what I believe are viable solutions that can further curb, gambling addiction. And the company rejects them.
Mhm.
And I appreciate their transparency, but the reason they reject them is because at the end of the day, the number one priority is money.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like almost it's
So it's
not like, "Oh,
like
hey, your
yeah,
features are
so
bad," but
it's
the features work too well.
exactly, 'cause if it works too well, then you're taking away the customers, so it's basically
Yeah,
like, let's do what we're legally required to do, but we
exactly,
still wanna retain people, so we can make money.
exactly. So that's kinda what it was. So, I got to the point where I'm like, "Hey, my soul's not nurtured, I'm gonna take off."
Yeah.
And then the question's, "Okay, cool, now I'm at this point where it's like, I believe everybody has unlimited possibilities, unlimited potentials.
Mhm.
It's just a matter of what opportunities you're keeping an eye out for, what you're working for, a little bit of chance, whatever it may be."
Yeah.
So then I'm kind of like, "Okay, how do I do this?" And that's essentially the birth of Peak, where it's saying, "I'm gonna create my own engineering firm where I'm specifically creating software, I'm specifically creating solutions that help people,
Mhm.
have some sort of positive social impact." So that's essentially the birth of Peak.
Okay. So, are these kind of, with Peak, are these projects, are they your own personal projects and initiatives, or are you doing things in collaboration with other businesses?
So so both.
Okay.
I have my own, like, internal projects that are some internal, some public facing, and then I still do contract work,
Mhm.
but the contract work is values based. So if someone comes right now and says, "Hey, my man, I'm gonna give you $1 million to, create something that's not positive,"
Mhm.
I'm not gonna do it.
Okay.
If someone says, "Hey, I can give you $10,000, to make something that'll help animals or whatever," I'm all for it.
Okay.
Like, let's do it. So yeah, so right now, one of the projects I made that is collaborative is with Sunhive Micro School.
Mhm. Yeah.
I did create their website and their portal, so students and parents can sign in. It's a very streamlined process. Do their application online, and then even when the semester starts, the teachers can put all the grades and everything on there. So it's kind of this like central port. And I what it does is pretty much uses technology to enhance the parent, the student, and the teacher
Mm.
experience. And something like that, I think is beneficial because I believe in Sun Hive and their mission.
Yeah.
So, and then right now I am potentially working with some other people. I'm not gonna rep them because some contracts aren't signed
Mhm.
yet. But there's some other local opportunities that I'm creating, in collaboration with others.
Okay.
And then the one that I am gonna release fairly soon is the EP cleanup app.
Yeah. So, well, and we'll get to that. I just want to ask you real quick. So, what's your ideal customer profile then, as far as, I know you said it's values based, but,
Mhm.
um, is there limitations as far as like the size of the organization or their budget or, um, type of work? Like, do they have to be are you looking for nonprofits or are they for profit businesses? Well, if I'm a business owner, with a kind of a value based business, how would I know I'm a good fit for you?
That's a good question, and it's not about business structure. I don't care if you're an S corp or a nonprofit or just one person that has an idea.
Mhm.
What matters to me is my belief in the impact of what we're creating. So essentially, any size organization, I want to say any budget, but it's any realistic budget.
Mhm.
There still has to be money involved at the end of the
Yeah.
day. I mean, that's just how things work. I do offer assistance to to non-large companies, because if I believe in an idea, there's always ways to make it work, whether it's monetary or, just future deals that can, so whether it's like a barter or a stake in the company or something,
Mhm.
there's always a way to find a solution, if there's a product that I believe in. But that, in sense of values, it's literally, how does this positively impact something,
Yeah.
whether it's society, environmental, animals, just whatever. I mean, as long as it helps, and when I'm making it, I feel positive, and
Mhm.
I feel like, hey, I'm contributing to society and the growth of, like, humanity, whether it's local or global. That's it. That's what I'm looking for.
So you mentioned environmental, so that's a good transition into the work you've done with EP Trash Mob, which I talked about on a previous podcast with Megan. So you mentioned, and you don't have to go into too much detail about it because I know you said it's still in the works. But you mentioned that you put together an app regarding the kind of like cleanup efforts in El Paso. Do you want to talk a little bit about you know what the structure of the app will be, or what the goal is that you're trying to address with it?
Yeah, because right now I do have, like, a rough proof of concept.
Mhm.
I won't demo it today, but I have a proof of concept. I'm trying to get it closer to that MVP, mark before I started sharing it.
Mhm.
But the goal of it is essentially kinda like the ethos of El Paso Trash Mob.
Mhm.
So, um, in our community, we have great, groups, right? We have Desert Rescue.
Mhm.
They do massive work in the desert. Like, we've teamed up with them. It's wild what they do,
Yeah.
and you've been there as well. It's wild. And then we have the Sun City Pickers.
Mhm.
They do a lot of parks, and we've teamed up with them, like, great contributions. With El Paso Trash Mob, our biggest focus is, not events, but trying to, like, kinda shift the culture,
Yeah.
where it's saying, "Hey, if you see trash, pick it up.
Mhm.
Don't litter." And the whole thing with El Paso Trash Mob is, like, if everybody goes, in fact, not everybody, if one person per block just goes outside and walks around their block, picks up trash, it takes about 15 minutes.
Mhm.
So, in theory, if each person per block went outside, we could technically clean up all the
Yeah,
litter,
just, like, as you're
in
walking or while
15.
you're walking your dog, just take an extra bag with
Yeah,
you and just yeah. It's not like
yeah,
it doesn't necessarily have to be, like, an extra effort type of thing. It's just like, if you happen to take a walk every evening after dinner, just take a bag with you, and if you see trash, just kinda pick up the litter along the way. Um
absolutely. And so that's kind of like what the app does, but I'm hoping the app is sort of a bridge for everyone, right?
Mhm.
For the Desert Rescue that goes desert scale, and Sun City that does park and neighborhood scales, and for El Paso Trash Mob that does street scale.
Mhm.
So essentially what the app does is it allows regular users, right? Me, you, civilians, if you would, it allows them to go to this app, and they can mark where they see litter, and they can
Mm.
also rate it on a scale of 1 to 5. And then if you clean it up, you can mention that you clean it up, and mark it, what the new rating is. Sometimes you can get
Like
100%,
little
bring it down to
badges
1.
and things like that.
Yes, eventually, not MVP, but yes, yes, we are gonna do record keeping.
Mhm.
So, essentially, when you mark that you clean up, you can put, how many bags you got, whether they were, like, Walmart bags or, gallon bags,
Mhm.
or excuse me, like, the trash bags are those 13-gallon bags, and it's gonna keep records for you. But the integration, with the other teams, is that, there's gonna be a way to mark your group, right? So, like I said, Desert Rescue, Sun City, Trash Mob,
Mhm.
and, we're gonna post events. And then whenever you go to the events, you can mark that you're there,
Mm.
and everyone can mark their bags, and then it's gonna show the total bags picked up for
For
everyone,
everyone, yeah.
uh, you know, per that event. Uh, and then, of course, whoever's leading the event, they can put in, like, the final count.
Mhm.
That way people are cheating. I hope no one cheats for the badges, but, sometimes people are people. So you'll have, like, the official count, the community count,
Mhm.
and then, that's kind of
And then
the thing. So then on your profile page, you'll show, like, all your histories every time you've picked up, whether it's on your own or not, and, how
would
many.
there also be a way to just kinda, like, mark where there's litter? Like, let's say I'm driving. I'm on my way to somewhere and I'm, like, sitting at a light because this happened to me the other day. I'm sitting at a light and I glance over and I see an area that could use some cleanup, but I can't clean up right then because 'cause I'm on my way
Uh-huh.
to somewhere. Could I just mark it and then maybe one of the cleanup groups could then go out, you know,
Correct.
go out to that
Yes,
area?
and exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. So essentially what I'm trying to do, so there's 3 ways to, report. 1, you can draw a fence. Like, it's
Mm,
kinda like a polygon. You can
yeah.
create your own perimeter.
Okay.
Second is you can actually touch, like, the name of a park and say, "Hey, it's the park's dirty." The third thing you can do is actually just do a pin drop.
Mhm.
So you can even do it on your location, just kinda slide it. And exactly, the idea is not everyone's gonna be able to clean. So what I'm trying to do, and this is the true intent now, right? This is the higher level intent of the app, is that we're essentially creating a reporting app.
Mhm.
But we're not saying, "Hey, city, pick it up," because the city works at the city's pace. And if we want shit done, we gotta do it.
Mhm.
So the idea is if you mark it and someone else sees it, and you can go to that spot, especially for the groups.
Yeah.
A lot of times we ask each other, "Hey, is there a good spot on the east side? Is there a good spot on the west side?" Here you go, my man.
Yeah.
We have this
But I think
community
it would also
reference.
be great for, like, high school students who do volunteer work. There's cleanup groups in some of the high schools or, if people have to do volunteer work for a college application or something like that, you know, they could go on the app and see, "Okay, let's get a group of friends together and go do a cleanup in a park," or something like that. So,
Yeah.
I think it's beneficial beyond, like, the kind of formal groups if people just wanna get together with, like, a group of friends and go to
And that would be a
Yeah.
future feature. The biggest thing that I need to accommodate, and this is why it's a future feature, not a MVP. Like MVP is like, I'm not sure if you're familiar, a minimal viable product.
Mhm.
That's usually like day one release,
Yeah.
like the features that you need. For the future features, which we would like to have where people can create their own groups, the biggest thing we wanna do is reduce any chance of, like, fraud or even security issues.
Mm.
One of the things I would absolutely it would just make me sad, is if somebody, created a group, said, "Meet me here," and
Yeah.
people go there and get mugged. Kinda
Mhm.
like, back with Pokemon Go, you know, people would create their own, like, meetup spots, and then
Mhm.
they would just rob people. So,
Yeah.
you know, I just wanna be proactive
Yeah.
with that. That's why at first it's
Absolutely.
gonna be the official groups, and then as it grows, I'm gonna add more of those, social safety features to ensure that everybody's safe.
Nice. So, what's sparked your interest in kind of advocation and social awareness in El Paso?
That's a good question because, I mean, a part of me always speaks up. I can't help it. Yeah, I mean, it's just my character. Since I was little, even just, like, defending my sisters, growing up, if I see people get bullied, I was always like, I was always stepping up.
Mhm.
And I don't know, it's just who I am. And specifically in El Paso, I mean, we've obviously had issues, right? And there's no place that's perfect.
Mhm.
It's just specifically, regarding the data center, it's just such a critical issue. And I feel like even now, there's still so many neighbors who are not aware of the reality of the dangers of it.
Mhm.
And the big thing too is it's kinda like snowballing, right? Like, my advocacy and the reason why, because initially, my whole intent was not to say, "Hey, like, how do I demonize this data center?"
Mhm.
I was seeing posts about it, right? The, like, dangers and the water use and this, and to me, it was absurd. I was like, "It's not this bad." That was my belief. I was like, "It's not this bad." So, I started doing the research for myself just so I could be informed.
Mhm.
And when I did this research, I was like, "Holy shit, this is way worse than people are making it out to be."
Mm.
And so I went ahead, and what I did too to verify, right? It's saying, "Okay, cool, it's probably this worse." I looked at different data centers that are already established in America and what are the problems with them,
Mhm.
right? That's how we can know, right? Especially if they're in the
Yeah.
Southwest. So I did that. I aggregated that data and I wrote a 20-page research paper that highlights all of those issues. And based on that, I also came up with solutions. And a lot of those solutions are what each of those cities had to do to curb some of these issues. So it's not like, I didn't just kind of like make up hypotheticals, but it said, I was saying like, how did they actually resolve some of this? Like, why are they not dead? So the way I saw it was, if we're going to have a data center here, why not? And I want to be clear, we shouldn't have one. But if we are going to have one, what if we already know all of the pain points? And what if we already enact all of these solutions to
Mhm.
prevent these damages or at least minimize these damages? So I wrote that report. I submitted it to city council. I spoke at city council, to just kind of acknowledge some of the pain points. I think I just talked about two of the issues in person.
Mhm.
Because at first, my belief is saying, okay, hey, we don't know. So I would like to tell you. That was the extent. So, like, it wasn't like, "Oh, I'm gonna advocate and continue advocating." It was just like, "Hey, city council, here you go." And then I was kinda like, "Hmm, they don't seem to care." Right? So that kinda tells me, it's like, "Okay, did you guys already know, or do you still not understand?" Now, we all learn at different paces.
Yeah.
That's completely acceptable. So that's kind of, once again, so I was like, "Hey, let me share some information with the neighbors,
Mhm.
and, let me talk at city hall again, but bring up another issue." And now we have so many neighbors that are sharing information,
Mhm.
that are aware of these problems, and still our city council is not acting.
Yeah.
And more specifically, I would say not acting with the sense of urgency that this deserves. So, so my thing is, hey, I still need to share information with our neighbors,
Mhm.
and
But I
we
think the
either
more educated the community becomes, the more vocal they will become, and then city council has to listen, right?
exactly.
Because I think
And
from
city
the
council will have the
standpoint
choice.
of
They
a
can either
council member, initially it was probably like, "Well, this is what Meta is telling us, and this is what you're telling
yeah,
us." It's like, "Well, why should we believe you over Meta?" Right? And then so then it becomes, this kind of I don't wanna say issue of, like, status, but it's like, authority, right?
right,
So, I think that as you kind of, like and this was a conversation that you and I had, I was like, you gotta make more content, you need to be more visible so that people know who you are and know more
right,
about you and your background so that you are now a trustworthy source, right? Um,
yeah,
so I think that, like you said, there's other people in the community who are sharing information and stuff as well. So I think
mhm.
the more educated the public becomes and the more vocal as a whole everybody becomes, then it's like, okay, now they're gonna listen. At least that's just been my experience in the past.
Yeah, that's the hope, is either that they're gonna listen, and I also believe in accountability.
Mhm.
So if at the end, if they proceed with all of this, I don't want them to be able to hide behind the shield of ignorance. "We didn't know. Why didn't you say
Yeah.
anything?" No, you know. We said it.
Mhm.
Now if they wanna choose to act or not act, at least they'll be able to own up to that decision. And then, as you know, November, election season's
Yeah.
coming up. So that's where we get to say if we are happy or not happy with the actions that they take.
In doing this work, do you ever feel, any type of, like, pressure in in working publicly and
Oh,
being more
yeah.
visible?
Yeah, it depends what you mean by pressure, but of course there's pressure. Because 1, I'm definitely an introvert. A lot of people don't get that, which is cool. Like, I'm glad the mask, is working. Um, but, at the end of the day, if I get well, I do get to choose, and I'm choosing, but, like, my comfort is being home, or sometimes, like, kinda being out alone, just kinda, like, go in the background.
Mhm.
I don't like attention.
Yeah.
It's never satisfied me. In fact, like I said, it makes me uncomfortable. But, the pressure is one part, that, like, getting out of my comfort zone. The second part is effectiveness, because I need to know that what I'm doing is, effective, right?
Mhm.
That it's positive, it's making a
Yeah.
difference. So whenever I make something, I have that pressure, like, is this going to benefit somebody? At least one person.
Mhm.
That's it. One person. So then when I post something, I kinda have that, like, fear, because I think if I was making content just to make it, because, like, I've made stupid stuff before, like, on TikTok, I've made, like, dumb stuff just kinda, like, for fun, kinda for boredom, and when I post it, I don't care. There's no pressure involved with that, because who cares? And then with this, it just, to me, it feels so important,
Yeah.
and then I'm like, "Wow, what if I say this and people don't understand it? Or what if people do understand it, but they don't care?" So it's kinda that pressure of, like, is this impactful, or am I making noise?
Yeah.
Is this just more static in the world? I would say that's definitely the pressure
Yeah, and
of it.
that's an ROI that's a little hard to measure, but I think what's a good kind of measurement of it is the feedback that you get, like, whether it's in
Mhm.
person or in the comments on Instagram or, wherever else you're posting. Because I did read through comments on some of your posts and people like, when you posted about El Paso Hub, .org, and you actually asked for people feedback if, like, if there's something you didn't see on here, let us know, or something doesn't seem right, let us know. And I saw comments of people engaging and saying, "I think this needs more clarification," or other
Yeah.
people saying, like, Thank you for this information. This is really great research." For me personally, when I was looking at it earlier, the glossary really helped because I
Okay.
consume so much content about data centers across the US and, different issues. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on in Jersey, and they're trying to build a data center in the county outside of Philly where my parents are. So I'm like, paying a little more attention now. The glossary was really helpful because 'cause I'm hearing words and I don't necessarily understand what the
Mhm.
certain, um, terminology is. So, between that and then also, like, you giving the history of AI, it's like the AI didn't just, like, appear out of nowhere, like, last year, right? It's just the buzzword. It became a buzzword over the past year or so, but AI
Absolutely.
is built into a lot of stuff that we've been using since kind of the creation of computing, right? I don't know if you wanna talk a little bit about that, but I think that is a major kind of educational point that I think is missing in a lot of AI discussions is that I feel
Mhm.
like and I've had this conversation with people at work, I feel like the word AI gets applied to things that aren't necessarily AI, like, in the sense of, like, artificial intelligence. It's just kinda like an automation, like, type of thing. They're just slapping the AI label on it to, kind of, like, attract attention. So, yeah, if you could talk a little bit about that and, like, there was a section on El Paso Hub.org where you talked about AI and, machine learning and,
Yeah.
yeah, what the kind of the difference is.
Yeah, so AI is essentially the field, is computer science.
Mhm,
Machine learning is like call it a subfield within AI. So it is AI. It's not that it isn't. It's just the misconception is, like you mentioned, it's the buzzword of AI, right?
mhm,
So, like initially, when humans, all of us, when we think of AI, and in fact, let's go back 5 years ago, right?
mhm.
When we think of AI, we think of a robot, right?
Yeah,
That's kind of how we see it. There's this thing that can learn organically. We can't distinguish it from human life, and that is still, the pinnacle of what AI could be.
mhm,
And but within computer science, artificial intelligence is essentially something that can learn through patterns. And specifically with machine learning, there's deep learning, and deep learning uses neural nets, which it sounds really cool and it is really cool. But essentially, what it is that when data is fed into the learning path, into these to the nodes of the neural networks, what it's doing is it's essentially looking for patterns, and there's different algorithms. I won't deep dive into this, but or I might already be starting to deep dive. But essentially, what's happening is it's able to correlate these patterns, and based on the output, a human essentially reviews it and says, "Okay, cool. You picked up patterns." That's essentially what it is. Like, it's not that simple, but that's essentially what it
mhm,
is. So that has been used. Like basic examples would be if you go to Netflix and it recommends what movies you might like. There's basic ways to do it where it's just looking at other people. That's not machine learning. But then there's ways where it actually sees the features of what you like,
mhm,
and then it can make correlations between those features and other features of other things that, because it's picking up these patterns that previously didn't exist. And that's been around. The only difference is now a lot of companies are saying, hey, this is artificial intelligence. When it is, but not really, not in that sense.
Mhm.
It's machine learning, which we've been utilizing since the 50s.
Yeah.
Now, there has been a lot of progress and enhancements of it, but more specifically, now it's being overused, and that's actually the problem. Is we have all of these companies that absolutely do not need AI. It doesn't need deep learning. It doesn't need machine learning, but they're doing it because the investors are going to give them money.
Mm.
It's all a cash grab, you know? And what's happening is, especially with these neural networks with deep learning, it uses a lot more compute. Because instead of just having like a basic algorithm, it's actually like a lot of algorithms and a lot of processing that's happening. And that's where like the electric, right? It's using electricity.
Mhm.
It's generating heat. It's consuming water.
Yeah.
So there's nothing wrong with AI. There's nothing wrong with machine learning, deep learning. Um, the problem that we're facing now is the same problem that humanity has faced always, which is just greed and ignorance.
Mhm.
And you have these corporations that are, for example, recently Facebook, um, it, for their engineers, they had a leaderboard of who has the most AI utilization.
Oh, wow.
And this is something you can measure because whenever we use AI, we're actually utilizing let's say it's measured in tokens. That's essentially what it
Mhm.
is. So they have this token leaderboard of the most. But the thing that blows my mind is when AI, right, the new buzzword of AI, when it first came out a few years ago, my first instinct as an engineer is, oh, okay, this is cool. How do we optimize it?
Mhm.
How do we make it more
Yeah.
efficient? And it blows my mind that at the corporate level, that is not the goal. Instead, it's the opposite.
Yeah. It's
How do we make it more inefficient? How do we use more of these tokens per call?
yeah.
Which is something. So, one of the things we didn't mention, just because I do so many things, is I am a DevOps and an AI instructor.
Mhm.
I do teach at a boot camp, and I teach my students how to optimize everything. So even just with basic AI calls, right? Like how you use ChatGPT and whatever else, there's always ways to optimize it.
Mhm.
Which one gives you better results, and two is better for the planet. It's even better for your computations. If you're doing something so big, you need your computer, to handle it as efficiently as
Yeah.
possible. And it just blows my mind that on the other side of the spectrum, they're just like, "Hey, who gives a shit?" And one of the things I see online that's very like it's just not correct. A lot of people say, "Hey, don't use AI." "Oh, why are you using ChatGPT?" Even with image
Mhm.
generations and I mean, I would make the argument, yeah, sure, if you don't have to use it, don't use it, right? We don't need to overuse anything.
Yeah.
But the amount that we use, regular people use, and then I would say even the amount that I use as an engineer is absolutely just a drop. It's nothing compared to what these companies are using.
Mhm.
So that I would say a good analogy, a one for one analogy, is kind of how the El Paso Water says, "Hey, we're in a drought. On Monday, don't water between this time and this time." But then we have a data center that's going to consume 2.5 million gallons of water a day, and it's like, dude, if you guys gave a shit, you wouldn't have this here,
Mhm.
But they I don't know, it's like we're always the problem. Humans are the like regular people are the problem, but it's
And
not,
not the
you know?
what's happening up here. Yeah, 'cause, I as a photographer, I will admit I use AI, right? A lot of photographers are using AI for culling, editing, and retouching now, because customers want their pictures tomorrow. So it helps our workflows a lot faster. But those are applications and features that have been available for years. I only just now started doing it, but the company that I'm using, I've been seeing them at trade shows and events and exhibitions for like the past 5 years. So, um, you know, these are tools that are helping people to work more efficiently, and more productively. But then you have the AI slop, right? The people out here just generating images
Oh,
for the hell of it, or making AI art or AI music, and it's like,
yeah.
um, that in my opinion is kind of taken away from society. right?
I
I
absolutely
I
agree.
just saw a
Absolutely
video
agree.
or a reel earlier on Instagram, and this girl, she had noticed a spike in visits on her website, and when she looked
Okay.
at the origin of it, it was all coming from China, and it turned out it was, um, AI that was being trained off of her artwork, and
Mm,
that was all the hits on, and so she was just kinda like, having this moment of, like, feeling completely helpless, because she's like, my I put my human soul into my artwork, and this machine is just taking it, um, and she's like, "I don't wanna take my stuff off the internet. This is how I make my living. I sell my art online." But at the same time, it's like she feels like she's being robbed of her creativity. Um, so there definitely needs to be regulations and I think
mhm,
more oversight with regard to the data centers, and, we can get a little bit into, more of the technical speak with regard to the data centers as far as, like, I was reading about was it potable water? It was, like, understanding, like, potable water and the was it reclaimed water and how that whole, um, system works, and, like, I'm learning so much off of elpasohub.org, that's helping me understand the issues with data centers and AI, and then also things that I've seen with regard to the government just trying to say, like, "Okay, we need to slow down, and we need to figure out how to build these data centers in a way that it's not going to be detrimental to human life," right? Um,
mhm.
so with regard to El Paso and
Okay.
the prospect of these data centers, because now they're talking about one down in Socorro too. Um, and this being a desert town or desert city, and where we get triple digits temperatures, what is the logic behind putting a data center in the desert?
So there's a and now we're talking about from like Meta's
Yes,
perspective, right?
yeah,
From these companies. Yeah. So from the company perspective, the biggest thing is actually the dryness in the air.
okay.
Since it's so dry, it's actually good for their computer chips. They don't have to worry about rust, which is a major issue
Mhm,
everywhere else.
okay.
That's the biggest thing. But the other thing, and this is the one that they're not telling us, is they're going to places that, from my perspective, they don't value the people. And I say that because they're going to places that they can take advantage of,
Yes, it's usually, like, they're
such as
near
this
low
380 agreement.
income areas and, minority heavy
Yeah,
areas, that's what I've been seeing as well,
exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. The fact that they're coming here is pretty much their way of saying, "Hey, we think you're dumb." That's the bottom line. And the fact that our city council is like, "This is great." I'm like, dude, what? Are you confirming their belief? Because, the people of El Paso are not dumb. I'll stand by that. And I hear a lot of negative things. People are saying, "Oh, people here don't care about anything, and people here don't like learning." I don't think that's
Mm,
true. I think all humans have that drive to learn and grow.
yeah.
Period. You know? And it's like, just because our city council keeps us in the dark doesn't mean we don't like to learn.
Mhm.
Doesn't mean we don't like to know things. But sometimes it's a lot easier if we're in, like, let's say, a healthy relationship where information is more readily available, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, but essentially they're coming to a place where they can get cheap land, get 80% off their taxes, and they can do whatever the hell they want. That's the reason why they're
And
here.
they're counting on the general public either being ignorant of the issues or not caring about the issues, and I
Yeah.
think that's where this kinda work is important in educating people and getting the word out, even if it's, a situation if people disagree with you, at least they're having the conversation, right? And it's
Yeah.
being talked about, and then that, um makes brings the awareness to other people. So, uh
The thing that I would say, since you mentioned disagreement, even online, very few people are disagreeing with what I'm putting
mhm,
out. And very few people are agreeing with wanting a data center. The one thing I've noticed is everyone that's either for data center, they're absolutely saying completely incorrect
mm,
information. And that's the harm, is that a lot of people, when they hear something, they're just saying, "Okay, I believe it." So, like, People are saying, oh, the jobs, it's going to create all these jobs. Read the contract.
Yeah.
The contract says 50 jobs, and even then, it doesn't guarantee it. It guarantees it's like a
Yeah,
trade-off,
I think
right? So it's
the
like,
bulk of the
we'll give
jobs would be during the building of the data center, but then
yeah, the
that's once
temporary
it's
jobs.
done, yeah, it's
Yeah,
temporary.
it's just
Yeah.
temporary. Because then even now, the Fort Bliss one, they put out a statement, and they said, oh, the Fort Bliss job or the Fort Bliss data center is gonna have 2,000 jobs. Dude, no, it's not. Unless you're talking about temporary jobs. No, it's not, because data centers don't even need the 50 people. That's the reality. They're doing the 50 jobs as a favor in exchange to get 80% off their taxes. And it's like, they're getting the better deal. Of course, they're hiring 50 people for fun.
Mhm.
Like, it's insane to me.
Yeah. Um, and I know a big issue with the data centers amongst the photography community is that Meta and all these other companies have been, reserving all of the the memory card, like, the
Oh, yeah, the
elements that
SD
go
cards.
into memory cards that we use in our cameras are, like, at a premium right now because,
Mhm.
they're being all bought up for the data centers. So now it's like a memory card that would have cost you, $100 a couple months ago is running for like $500, or a card that was, previously $30 is now like $200. And now for me, I am a photographer who I shoot and transfer and then I format and I reshoot. I've been using the same cards now for like 20 years. But for people who might do commercial work or video work, they might shoot on a card and then turn the card over to their client, right? And the client is then taking it to do whatever they need to do with it. So then they have to go buy another one. Now, granted, they could just factor that into the cost of the job, but when the chip is now, or not, when the SD card is now costing, upwards. I've seen somebody post one that was like $1,200 for a CF Express card, and I'm just like, that's the cost of the camera. That is, like, you know what I mean? Like, that's like half the cost of a camera, just for the card. And it directly has to do with the data centers buying up all of the RAM and stuff. So,
Mhm.
um, I don't know how the industry is gonna address that moving forward. I think I saw something, they said that Samsung, like, officially is not selling any more SD cards because all of their production has already been, like, reserved for data centers. Um, so, hopefully those types of issues don't start to impact other things, but we don't know at this point, because everything is happening so quickly. And
Mhm.
I think, and I'm trying to remember who I saw say this. It was a politician, it might have been AOC, was like, "We need to pump the brakes and and have a discussion about how we move forward to make the data centers and there's AI and human life kind of like exist, and build the data centers where it's not a significant impact to the communities." Um,
Yeah.
but with regard to your work, what kind of advice would you give to someone who is like motivated to do something that is of value and impact, but might not necessarily feel like they're not qualified enough to do that?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I think we live in an era, and, as much as people wanna demonize AI, it's beneficial, right? If the right use case is beneficial. I think we're past the point where someone's not qualified or not capable.
Mm,
And I think with the internet, the amount of free classes, free information on YouTube, the fact that you have AI that you can use correctly or incorrectly. Like, I tell my students, AI is either gonna make you dumber
mhm,
or smarter, and it depends how you interact with it. Because if you say, "Hey, AI, give me the answer," well, you didn't learn shit. But if you say, "AI, I'd like to accomplish this. What are the steps?" And then you ask questions and use it as an expert, a
yes.
mentor, and you fact check it, you're gonna learn a lot. So right now, anyone who wants to help with whether it's environmental advocacy, learn how to do anything, they absolutely can for free. They just have to dedicate the time and make sure their mind is right.
Mhm.
I think that's something people often skip, right? I think whenever you start anything, ensure that you're yeah,
You're receptive.
you're doing it for the right reason
Yeah.
and that you're aligned with yourself and that you focus, lock in, and you can do anything. So I would say just take advantage of free resources that other generations never had access to.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that about, like, how you say it's either gonna make you dumber or make you smarter. So, I
Mhm.
personally I use, outside of, like, my editing AIs, I use ChatGPT almost like an assistant, right? Because I can't afford an assistant
Mhm.
right now. So, it's like, creating my kinda social media schedules and, um, uh topic ideas, like but I think the key is knowing how to write a prompt, right? And this is how what
Yes.
I've been explaining to some of my colleagues, when I say, "Oh, I use ChatGPT to do this," and they're like, "Well, how?" And I'm like, "Well, this is how you write a prompt." I think that's what a lot of people are using ChatGPT to think for them, uh,
Mhm.
rather than, like you said, feeding the idea into it and helping it, using it to help expand what your brain already generated. And this is kind of a lot of what's been in my algorithm on Instagram lately is those types of discussions about the commodity of knowledge in the future, right? And how it's going to
Yeah.
be um, a new uh, a new service that you could provide because people don't know how to utilize AI properly, and,
Mhm.
um, so that might be a discussion for another day on another podcast because that I could talk about that forever and just how, some of the stuff I see with people using ChatGPT as a therapist or using ChatGPT
Mhm.
to vent their personal issues too, and then there's the whole aspect of people putting legal information in the ChatGPT, and that becomes a whole other, situation. But yeah, but outside of that, let's talk about where we can find you and your information. I mentioned Peak earlier, which is the website is
It's pi-que.com.
okay. So pi-que.com, and then you have
Correct.
elpasohub.org. And
Correct.
then on social media, I don't know if you're on Facebook, but I know on Instagram you have EP Trash Mob. And we'll just throw a shout out there for Sun Hive Micro School while we're here because you are a board member. Um, and if people have any questions
Also,
or
I would say my
oh
Insta,
yes, yes,
since I
yes.
posted
Your
videos.
Insta is true_lie 13.
Correct.
Ah,
And true without a E.
yeah, true without so TRU and all this will be in the description. So TRU
Okay.
underscore LIE 13. Um And that's where you're posting all your kind of updates and everything about what's going on and mentions of when you're gonna be speaking, at city council. So, but if anybody has questions about the data centers, about elpasohub.org, definitely reach out to Jonathan. Or if you, have a business or a nonprofit that is looking for potential services provided by Peak, definitely check out the website and reach out to Jonathan. Jonathan, again, thank you for your time. I appreciate you.
All right. Thank you for having me. It was fun.
You're welcome. And thank you, everyone, for listening and watching.
Life doesn't always stay in perfect focus. There's magic in the blur we can't ignore. Every shadow, every highlight softly shows us who we are and who we're reaching for. When the world feels out of frame, every thought, every fear, every revelation, I find my way through the quiet flame, light and life in all the limitations.